Okay, so it's time to get into the brakes and the ultimate breakdown of this build project. It started pretty simply, mounting an adapter to the fork to get it to 203 millimeters. The back brakes are also going to be 203, but the Meta TR mount is 200 millimeters, so they only required tiny washers as adapters. I'm attaching the calipers loosely since we'll center them properly later. I then routed the rear brake cable, and what followed was basically a comedy of dumb errors. Look at how I put the brake onto the handlebars. Not noticing that was backwards, I thought the brake cable was too short and bought a brand new one. After waiting a week for it to arrive, I went through all the trouble of routing that, thought that was too short too, and was very confused until I suddenly realized this is on backwards, isn't it? Holy. Oh my God. This is the danger of doing this stuff at night after long and stressful days of work. Anyway, having fixed that, I got the hose threaded and attached to the brake lever to start the bleed process. Then I realized I'd forgotten to put one of those anti-rattle sheaths around the hose, so I removed it again, added them, and then reattached it. I'm not going to walk through the whole Hayes brake bleeding process because they've got videos on it, and also because I didn't do it very well. So instead, here are some things that I learned. First, have the right gloves. These yellow bathroom gloves that I'm using were too loose, and they made working with the tiny bleed port screws very, very difficult. Second, dot fluid is slippery as hell, and those bleed port screws are very, very tiny and difficult to get in. I think I actually bled the brakes pretty well, and then lost about half of the fluid trying to get the damn screws in. As I'm putting the wheels on here, you can see that the front brake hose is also routed incorrectly. Also, both brake hoses are still too long. But you know what? The wheels fit on and the brakes squeeze the rotors, and again, following Hayes' instructions, I was able to get the caliper centered correctly and torqued down. The rear brake is spongy, but it does work. So all that was left at this point was the remainder of the drivetrain and adding the dropper lever. The dropper lever is something I really should have done much earlier. In fact, I should have done all of that dropper stuff in a different order so that I cut the housing to length before inserting the cable, but I didn't do that. So I put on the dropper lever and started trying to get the cable connected, but it just didn't work. The ultimate problem was kind of complicated, but the bottom line is I was going to have to redo a bunch of stuff, including possibly rerouting the dropper cable, and y'all, I just did not have it in me at this point. I've set up a dropper before, and I've installed a derailleur and adjusted the shifting before, so I knew I could do those two things, but I was also getting pretty itchy to actually ride this thing and sick of fixing my own stupid mistakes and having to redo things 3 or 4 times because my brain just wasn't there. I was also about to go on vacation, so I just took it to all speed and had them finish everything up. For $300, they fixed the dropper, installed the rest of the drivetrain, retrimmed and rebled the brakes, and generally gave the bike a solid checking over. In the next video, we'll see how all that turned out and do a bike check and also take a look at the costs. We'll also talk about a few of the lessons that I learned about both finding deals and building up a bike from scratch.